Midweek games for the Premier League, and of course Manchester United, Southampton and Ipswich and Brighton still to play, but the big chunk of the Premier League games have been wrapped up. Arsenal get the win over their big North London rivals Spurs. Liverpool drop points to Nottingham Forest. Is it a point gain for Forest or is it 2 points drop? And City drop points, Newcastle get the win and Chelsea drop points. So of course I'm here to round it all up, so make sure you lot hit the like button and be sure to subscribe if you're new here. Now let's start with, I think, one of the most entertaining games of the midweek fixtures, and it wasn't the North London derby. It was actually Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool. Listen, Murillo, man of the match performance. What a player Nottingham Forest have on their hands. A defensive anchor, a threat. He reminds me, guys, of a Rudiger. Dare I say it? Dare I say it? I hope I'm not saying anything blasphemous, but he reminds me a little bit. He reminds me a little bit of Rudiger, the way that he plays, just the aggression and the defensive actions that he put in over Liverpool. Now, in the second half, Forest were defending for most of the game, but when they got those counter-attacking moments, they couldn't really capitalise on it. Chris Wood with just a typical number 9 strike, and I think Van Dijk was actually caught out there, not watching Chris Wood's run. But Murillo, 17. Yes, guys, 17 clearances. Can you believe that? And 24 defensive actions. For me, he was the man of the match. What a performance for Murillo and Nottingham Forest as they sit third in the table in what is it, an unexpected season I think that they're having, but they're doing it with such class, such elegance and such determination. Now, another standout performer for me, and not necessarily for a good reason, was Mohamed Salah. I feel like he could not really get out of gear 2 throughout the entire game. He lost 9 duels, yes, the most on the pitch, and he only won 1. That's a poor number, guys, especially as an attacking player. But for Liverpool, when it comes to Mohamed Salah maybe not performing well, that's when your strikers or your other attackers need to pick up the work. Jota gets a goal off the bench. Gakpo, Luis Diaz, not really as influential, especially Cody Gakpo for the season that he's kind of been having for Liverpool, that is slowly growing kind of month on month. He just couldn't get out of that gear either. But a standout player for me with Liverpool was Gravenberch. Listen, he's the best DM or CDM, central DM, whatever you want to call him. He is the best in class right now in the entirety of Europe, I would actually say. If you lot disagree, let me know down below, but he was so crucial for Liverpool in that midfield. He was coming up against the likes of Anderson, and I feel like Anderson, 35 million. I'm looking back at that price tag for him in the summer, and that was actually pretty much a good business deal for Nottingham Forest. But Gravenberch, clearances, recoveries, defensive actions, he was doing it all for Liverpool, playing as the anchor, keeping it going, trying to get them keep going forward, and Liverpool just could not do anything. I feel like Liverpool dropped points, but I also feel like Nottingham Forest could feel like they dropped points. Of course, Sels, another guy, if it wasn't for Murillo, he would have been my man of the match because he made 2 huge saves in the latter stages of the game, particularly that one where he comes off the line so quickly and spreads himself to make himself wide and makes a big save against Diogo Jota, who in those spaces you kind of guarantee that he's going to put those chances away. Murillo, Ola Aina, Sels, what performances they put in. And like I said, Liverpool might feel like they drop points, but Nottingham Forest can definitely feel like they drop points as well, because like I said, there was moments on counter-attacks. They did not have anything left in their tank to try and be clinical and put any chances away. But what a performance for them. And then next up, Chelsea, another team dropping points. I don't know if Chelsea fans are feeling frustrated. They haven't won a game in 5 in the Premier League under Maresca so far, but Semenyo, that guy, he has to have like a 50 million price tag at the least in the summer if they choose to cash in on him. I don't think they will, but if the price is right, then they might look to sell. What a strike from him. Acheampong just gets kind of done. I don't think he actually had a bad game, but in that particular moment, 1v1 up against Semenyo, and he just gets done a little bit, and Semenyo just takes a touch to his left and an absolute rocket in the goal. Now, Chelsea, having spent over £1 billion, still need some centre-backs. They're in dire need of centre-backs. They're in dire need of a goalkeeper. I feel like a lot of Chelsea's maybe starting 11, maybe the front line, maybe the midfield is kind of cemented, but they definitely need some upgrades, emergency, on that back line quickly. And then Reece James obviously coming back and scoring that free kick. I don't know if Chelsea fans again feel like they dropped points and they should have walked away with it, but Bournemouth, Nottingham Forest, listen, the historically mid-table teams, they're not mid-tables anymore. They're taking points off of all the top teams. They're taking points off of each other, and this is probably one of the most entertaining Premier Leagues I've probably seen in a while in terms of competitiveness for more so the mid-table, traditionally mid-table team. Now, a quick honourable mention to Alexander Isak, because that guy is in flying form, and I understand completely why Newcastle have priced him at such a high valuation at 150 million plus. He is, Alexander Isak, let me say this, guys, he is the best striker in England right now. I know you lot are going to say Haaland. People are going to maybe mention Wood. Chris Wood is in good form. Dominic Solanke can get you a goal or two. But Alexander Isak, the rate in which he's scoring, and it's the different forms of goals that he's scoring for Newcastle, absolutely clinical. He's an all-round number 9. He's a number 9 that I think anybody in the league would love to have. I get why he's linked to Arsenal and Arsenal are keen on the idea of him. But Newcastle right now, they have a core group of players like Gordon, like Isak, like Joel Linton, some quality players that can really help them redeem themselves throughout the latter stages of the season. They got a experienced manager in Eddie Howe, and like I said, Isak for me is the best striker in the Premier League right now. Now, Pep Guardiola drops points again this time to Brentford. Wissa, I feel like, doesn't get enough recognition. He just overtook Ivan Toney with the goal that he scored against Man City. He overtook Ivan Toney to be on track, I think, to be Brentford's highest goal scorer in the Premier League, especially when he was playing second fiddle to Ivan Toney throughout most of that time. Now him and Mbeumo, they've become that 1-2 combo punch, you know, the pick and roll, if you want to call it in basketball terms, or in boxing terms, the 1-2 punch. Wissa don't get his flowers enough. I genuinely feel like he does not get his flowers enough. I feel like Mbeumo, of course, gets the large shine of that front line for Brentford, but Wissa needs a bit more respect in Premier League football right now. And Pep Guardiola, their problems at City is bigger than Rodri. I've said this throughout the season. The problems that they have is bigger than Rodri. Yes, they're missing that anchor in the midfield, that kind of defensive duel master, the guy that kind of cements the midfield for them, but that backline is shaky, and I understand why. Surprisingly, or not surprisingly, they've went out and brought 2 defenders in this transfer window, yet to be announced. Fabrizio Romano has kind of confirmed that they're set to buy 2 defenders now. Phil Foden finally gets on the score sheet, not once but twice. Maybe he's going to start finding his form right now. Kevin De Bruyne comes back, gets an assist as well. There's not really much to be said about that, but I think City's problems are bigger than Rodri right now. Is Pep Guardiola going to figure it out? They're going to bring in Omar Marmoush, bring in multiple players in the January transfer window when other teams aren't really doing business like that. But of course, they've still got that money that they sold Julian Alvarez for, and of course, probably investment from their owners. The problems that they have, like I said, is bigger than Rodri, and there will be gaping holes in their team until they figure out those problems and absolutely address it. But Pep Guardiola, is he gonna figure it out? I don't know. But right now, the way the league table's looking, Arsenal get a big win against their North London rivals, and I'm gonna say this: the biggest difference, well, aside from, you know, putting it in the back of the net, another huge difference for me between Spurs and Arsenal is a player like Gabriel in your backline. Now, I understand Spurs have these injury issues where they're playing Archie Gray in centre-back. And for me, I remember watching him against United, against Rasmus Højlund, and he put in a quality shift. But Gabriel today, for me, absolutely man of the match, well deserved. Got the goal, of course, to equalise for them after Son put Spurs up. But Gabriel does not get enough respect. A lot of plaudits tend to go to Saliba, and rightfully so. But Gabriel, for me, has been up there with one of the best centre-backs in the league right now. Now, of course, United fans, you're probably watching this thinking, what? He made an error that led to Garnacho getting an assist for Bruno in the FA Cup. I'm talking about in the Premier League right now. Blocks, he was there, putting a body on the line. Aerial duels, he's there, battling it out with Dominic Solanke. Absolutely crucial. Another player that I'm going to give his flowers, and I feel like he's not overlooked, but because of Ranieri's come up, there's another academy kid coming through Arsenal right now in Lewis Skelly, today playing in his first big game for Arsenal. And what a player he is. Honestly, like, when I watch him, I don't really realise his age on the pitch because of the way that he's able to play. His ability to read the game defensively and know what to do at the right points of time, for me, is something that you can't teach. It's either you got it or you don't. And another mention for me goes to Declan Rice as well, because there's always this conversation. Is he a 8? Is he a 6? Today, he showed you where he really plays and where he really flourishes. Now Arsenal got the win, like I said. And I think for me, the biggest thing when I'm watching Spurs is, yeah, you can cut them open, because I feel like the way that Ange sets them up, they're just there to be taken advantage of defensively. The gaps between the back line and the midfield and the front line is so huge. And at some points, I felt like Arsenal had about 4 or 5 guys pressing the back line and were able to win the ball back if necessary. But Spurs today, they were just not clinical. Not only were they not clinical, they weren't really creating any threatening moments. Think about the threatening moments, especially in the second half of the game. There wasn't really any threatening moments. I feel like Pedro Porro made some poor options. I feel like Brennan Johnson made some poor options. And bar the goal, I don't really remember seeing much of Son until he came off for Richarlison. Now, I'm not going to do like a team of the week thing, because like I said, there's still 2 games to go in the midweek fixtures. And then there's another round of games on the weekend. The football is coming thick and fast, guys. But this is probably the most exhilarating time in the Premier League because the fixtures are coming up. Champions League, European fixtures are coming up for a lot of the teams, and this is where rotation comes in. This is where people start to drop points. I feel like coming into the Liverpool and Forest game, that was a big fixture because Forest are breathing down the necks of everyone in that top 2 section. And like I said, Forest could probably feel like they could have walked away with 3 points, but they just were not clinical enough when it came to it. That's the most important part. Salah, when he's not really striking at goal, when he's not really hitting the target, it's down to the other players in that front line and maybe the attacking midfielders to carry the burden, carry the weight if necessary. He's been so crucial for Liverpool, but these are the games that stand out for me. Like I said, to lose 9 out of 10 duels in a game where you are chasing the game and chasing 3 points, and yes, you had Forest pinned down in their half or pinned down in their third throughout most of the second half, but those are the moments that matter the most. Nottingham Forest ate up every blade of grass. I think they left everything on that pitch, and that's why I feel like they probably would feel like they could have walked away with 3 points, walked away with the win, but they've taken 4 points out of 6 against Liverpool so far this season. Chelsea still got some question marks about their season, trying to figure it out. They went from quickly being title contenders to now potentially being in a top 4 race. Spurs have dropped down the pecking order in the table, and them and Manchester United, we're battling it out between the two of us just to make sure that we finish in a respectful position this season. And Manchester City, well, they have so many question marks over them, and it's been like that since the latter stages of October. But Alexander Isak, like I said, sticks out for me. 2 goals for Newcastle. What a striker he is, and Newcastle have every right to demand a big price tag for him. But let me know your thoughts down below. What did you lot make of the midweek fixtures? What player stood out for you the most? I can name Semenyo, I can name Murillo, I can name Gabriel, Sels, I can name Rodgers, I can name Isak. There's so many players for me that stood out this week. But let me know your thoughts down below. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well if you are new here. We've got a lot of Premier League roundups as well as other European leagues, so if you're new here, let me know what you think.